that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited,
KBLA Talk 1580. And this Talking Point Tuesday, it is my pleasure to welcome into the space and his emphasis on the arms industry in the U.S. military budget. He was previously the director of the Arms and Security Program, the Center for International Policy, and the co-director of the Center's Sustainable Defense Task Force, is the author of Profits of War, Lockheed Martin, and the Making of Military Industrial
after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment after being recruited, discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured unfair treatment. After being recruited, said that he was discriminated against and endured
escalating over the past several decades, right? I mean, this is a pretty steady trend line up in our spending, right?
Yeah, there was a dip at the end of the Cold War for a while, and then the military-industrial lobby rallied, and after 9/11, the Pentagon budget went up 10 years in a row, which had never happened before, and it's pretty much been going up ever since. So it's got to the point where, well, the Senate just agreed to throw another $20 billion on top of all this money they're already getting, and it was partly done by the Democrats out of weakness. They wanted some more money for domestic programs, and the Republicans wouldn't give them that unless they threw more money at the Pentagon. So we're in a very difficult spot in terms of getting Congress to advocate for reductions.
I mean, we're now in an era where we're giving the Pentagon more than they ask for, right?
Well, yes. Every year the Congress adds for their pet projects. So if I have a piece of the F-35 combat aircraft in my district, I'll vote to add more than the Pentagon asks for. Or if there's some ship that they want to retire and we're maintaining it in my district, we'll prevent the Pentagon from getting rid of it. And so some years that could be another $20 or $30 billion. This recent year, they were supposed to have a deal to cap it, and the Senate just broke that deal. So, the members of Congress should be advocating for us. Too often are pushing the other direction. There's some exceptions. Barbara Lee is pushing a bill to cut $100 billion, along with some colleagues. There's some other people like Elizabeth Warren who's going after the profiteering, but they're the exceptions to the Congress as a whole. They really need a lot of heat if they're going to start trying to rein this in.
So much to kind of get my mind around right here that I almost don't know where to start. But you said the word profiteering, and I think right now there's a lot of talk about how come we're sending money to Ukraine, all this money to Ukraine, all this money to Israel, and other foreign entities that are in their military campaigns, when we have people living on the streets, homeless, when we claim that we don't have enough money to fix our own infrastructure, right? Our power grid and such, which seem like security risks. But we don't talk about the profiteering part. We talk about priorities. How big of a factor is that in, what I would call overspending on defense?
Well, the advocates of more money say it's for the troops, and who wants to deprive the troops? But in fact, more than half the Pentagon budget goes to corporations, and the top five: Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics, and Raytheon get a good chunk of that. They get hundreds of billions per year, and often the Pentagon doesn't even. It's not a fair fight. Like, they don't really tell them what their inputs cost. Sometimes they only have one or two companies to go to. So the companies engage in massive price gouging. Some of the small firms charge, hundreds of times what something costs to the Pentagon, because the Pentagon has nowhere else to get the stuff. And they've cut back on the people that are monitoring the company, even as the money goes up. So they can't even, chase the money down. And then the companies pay their CEOs, $20 million a year and more, hundreds of times of what an entering person in the military would get. So this is usually sort of put to the side when we discuss this. I did a paper on the corporate benefits from all the wars since 2001. And companies split about $2 trillion. Again, one of these unfathomable figures. So that's kind of all ignored. And, they say, well, we need every penny. But obviously, if we weren't letting these companies run rampant and pick our pockets, we wouldn't need to spend that much.
Mm. Well, there's two questions that naturally flow from that. One is the question of jobs, because we always hear that if we cut the military budget, we're cutting not just the troops' pay, but also all the people that work in the defense industry at the Lockheed Martins of the world. And that even when we send money, say we send money to Ukraine, well, we allocate money for Ukraine. They're really buying weapons from us. So there's a economic stimulus part of that, which is something we rely on. How do you respond to that kind of analysis?
Well, it's more a political problem than anything, because any other way you would spend that money, healthcare, infrastructure, green energy, even a tax cut, would create more jobs than spending it on weapons. So the problem is that political gridlock in Washington, where you can't get money to invest in other things we need. But also, it's a long-term losing strategy, because when you build a fighter plane, it just sits there. It doesn't create more economic benefits for the future. If you educate people, if you build machinery, if you invest in infrastructure, that makes the economy more productive going forward. So, many empires have gone down because they lean so heavily on overseas interventions and military spending, and the neglect of the foundations of their society. And in fact, that's part of what Eisenhower was talking about when he criticized the military-industrial complex. But we can't just become a garrison state and neglect our other needs, or even the ability to defend the country will diminish because you don't have motivated, educated people even for that purpose. So it's a longer-term fight, but it's a fight we have to have.
William D. Hartung is my guest. You're welcome in if you have a question. I'm pretty sure there's some conversation going in the chat room at KBLA 1580 on YouTube. And we do have so much to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
Summer's greatest hits are going on now, and Macy's one-day sale has summer's greatest savings. Shop limited-time specials like 40 to 60% off everything for this weekend's Backyard Bash. From the Cellar Barbecue, Henkel's, and Tupperware, 40 to 70% off fine jewelry from Effie, Levion, and more, and 30 to 55% off bras, pajamas, and more basics. Hurry in. Our one-day sale starts Tuesday at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
Have you noticed the hype around retinol lately? It's all over my social media. But did you know you can get retinol in a body wash? Amazing, right? Olay Retinol Body Wash is packed with moisturizing vitamin B3 complex plus retinol to transform dry skin to visibly renewed in just 14 days. Try it the next time you shower and see the difference for yourself with Olay Retinol Body Wash for visibly renewed skin in just 14 days. And try Olay Retinol 24 Body Lotion.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right, you can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PATH to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
And I'm in conversation with William D. Hartung. He previously directed programs at the New America Foundation, the Policy World Institute, worked as a speechwriter and policy analyst for New York State Attorney General Robert Abrams, and he's been featured on national security issues on CBS 60 Minutes and, of course, KBLA, Talk 1580, among others. So pleased to have you in and walking through these issues with me. So, kind of laying out, talking about the budget and talking about why things are the way they are. When Eisenhower talked about a military-industrial complex, I think maybe we were nowhere near where we are now. It feels like there are military campaigns happening all over the world, some, receiving more attention and others less, but in almost all of them, U.S. weaponry is in play, right?
Yeah, I did a survey a couple of years ago, and out of 46 conflicts, large and small, 34 of them, one or both sides had received weapons from the United States. And this goes a little bit below the radar. I mean, if they have hundreds of thousands of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, they can't hide it. But if they're selling money to some dictatorship in the global south that's repressing its own people, it's not in the headlines. And also, it doesn't put our troops directly at risk. They almost view it as kind of a risk-free enterprise. And unless people raise their voices, there's no political risk for the companies or the government for doing that.
I mean, in terms of the size and scope of the military budget and what you call the garrison state, I mean, is there any turning back? Like, even if you somehow miraculously elected a Cornel West president, I don't know how, we seem so entrenched, I don't know how you can even get a small cut to the military budget of this country, let alone sort of a more sweeping change in philosophy about where we allocate our resources, even with tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people living on the streets right now in America, and kids going hungry.
Yeah, no, welcome to my world. I've been pushing this for a long time, and it's a tough fight. But I think the bigger picture is people have to decide what role they think this country should play in the world. And if the view is the U.S. has to be dominant militarily, be able to fight anywhere at any time, beat Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, have a huge nuclear arsenal, then, there's no rolling it back. You can always throw more money at it, but it puts us at greater risk. It starves our domestic needs. And I think there's kind of a war weariness and a skepticism about this.
Yeah.
I think what's missing is people don't think they can make a difference. I mean, our politics are such a mess now, and we've got some more immediate concerns like, saving what's left of our democracy, for example.
Yeah.
So, somehow, like, how does this fit into all that? And I think it's a problem across the board of people feeling empowered on a whole range of issues.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But speaking of saving our democracy, I was reading in one of the articles that you published in The Nation that in the past, the old school defense industry would try to play both sides. They'll give money to Republicans and Democrats. And what we're seeing with this new sort of technology and AI driven defense trend, which I want to get into more because I don't even think most of us are really tracking it, that these folks are more, they're on board with DJT. they're not really playing the game like the old school defense industry.
No, with a few exceptions, the kind of tech bros out of Silicon Valley who are into military stuff are all in. There's this guy Palmer Luckey who's 31 years old. He created the Oculus thing that you put on your head and look at the artificial environment.
I mean, that was kind of a fail, wasn't it? Was the Oculus popular? My kid hated it.
Well, he sold it off. He sold it off and made a lot of money. After that, I think it kind of flattened out. But he put that money into making weapons, and he does fundraisers for Trump. There's a whole school of thought there that says we barely need government. Trust the leaders of the tech world to create a wonderful new world for us. And of course, it's that's profoundly undemocratic, and also, not to put too fine a point on it, some of these people are crazy. They think we can live forever. They think we can colonize space. They think they can do anything, and we should just get out of the way and let them do it, which is why they lean Republican, because they don't believe in government of any kind.
Right, or any kind of regulation, or even checks and balances of their own technological ideas. I mean, I think Elon Musk is a perfect example. The self-driving car is here. Well, okay, but where, though?
He's a good example. I view him as like Donald Trump, if Trump had a few companies that actually made stuff instead of just selling his name. He's got, he puts satellites in space and he has self-driving cars, but that doesn't mean we want him like making our foreign policy. I mean, if you look at the guy's character, he's the one who let all these hate groups and neo-fascist groups platform themselves on Twitter, and he retweets them. He's a force for evil.
I mean, not to mention the self-driving cars, the fiery crash thing. I mean, I even the technology is what I'm saying is not always up to the hype, or often not up to the hype when it comes to Musk.
No, exactly. So, they want to automate our entire military, which means really complicated software. Gee, when has that failed before? So it's hugely risky, but even the Pentagon is sort of like, this is the wave of the future. And they actually, the new firms kind of, take a jab at the old school companies like Lockheed Martin, saying, well, they've served their purpose, but they don't understand software, and sent them to step aside. Let us have a bigger part of the pie. And basically, government should get out of the way, because these great men, and they mostly are men, are our, saviors.
And these great men are, like you said, tech bros. These are guys who are on board with the Trump agenda because it serves their self-interest. But they're talking about totally remaking the military in the image of AI, right?
Yeah, and they see some advantages. For example, they having a hard time filling their recruiting goals now. Part of it is people aren't in shape. A lot of it is they've looked at the wars in the last 20 years and think, why would I want to be involved in that? And so if they can create pilotless ships and drones and aircraft, they need fewer people to run the operation. And then the other thing is they're selling this idea that, hey, we're nimble. We will be more affordable. Look, we made iPhones. We made laptops. But as soon as you get into that military environment, the price increases follow quickly thereafter. And government is not going to be easily able to evaluate these folks, because they're going to suck up all the technical talent. Some guy's going to be sitting at a desk in the Pentagon who barely knows how to turn on his computer, trying to figure out if these people are selling us a bill of goods or not.
Ooh, that's a scary thought. I mean, the folks over, because you see that with lawmakers now. Lawmakers are totally out of their depth when it comes to regulating technology at all. Even these social media platforms, and which have now become, news dissemination platforms. They're more clueless than I am, and definitely 10 times more clueless than my teenager. So how can they regulate that industry?
Yeah, exactly. I'm on Instagram, but I don't know how to find anything, and I think there's a lot of people that. Yeah, I think, at a very minimum, they got to slow down this train.
Yeah.
A lot of venture capital is going into this, billions and billions of dollars, and a lot of the retired military folks are going to work for those venture capital firms because they want to cash in when some of these companies take off. So they're starting to use the traditional lobbying methods of the big companies, but the difference being, if you're at a venture capital firm and one of those bets hits, you can make millions. If you go to Lockheed Martin, you make a few $100,000 sitting on the board doing nothing. So there's kind of this attraction, money-driven attraction to all this that goes together with this, I would say, undue faith in technology, even though it's failed us many times in the past.
Undue faith in technology. Yeah, we all rely on tech, but we also, speaking of my teenager, we have a running joke in my house about our AI robot overlords because there's so many things that they get wrong, that they, I always joke that Siri can't find any of the black names in my address book. If I ask her to find Jane Smith, it's no problem. But, if it's LaQuanda, she's lost. She cannot pull that up. And that's just one small example. So I think about, not just the racial bias, but just kind of glitches come with the territory. But when a glitch can lead to the destruction of an entire nation or a human race, that's much more problematic, right?
Indeed. And you made a good point. A lot of these companies also, support domestic surveillance and misuse of algorithms,
right.
Prescriptive policing, which basically has huge racial biases, is still being used around the country, and it's enabled by companies like Palantir, which also do weapons, also fund this stuff. So there's kind of this seamless kind of way to kind of remake our society in ways that take power away from us,
Yeah. We only have a minute before news, traffic, and sports, so I won't ask you to answer it now, but I do want to talk about that because you made an important point about, okay, we have to be aware of this stuff, and we're talking about it right now. We're barely scratching the surface of the way that artificial intelligence and technology is now, coming into the military and weapons space. But you made a really important point about empowering ourselves and not just going, oh no, what's the use? We've always had this huge military budget. There's nothing we can do about it. That's not where we're going with this. So I want to take a look at, some of the ways that we can be effective in educating ourselves and influencing the trajectory of our country when it comes to this weaponry. Right now, when you started talking about prescriptive policing and the surveillance state, I'm always talking about the ring phones and how it's the largest unofficial surveillance network we've ever had in U.S. history. And then you put all that together with the data collection and now you're AI-ing the weaponry. It seems very scary. It seems like a tech autocracy, if that's a thing. But what can we do about it? I want to talk about that and more when we come forward. Talking with William D. Hartung on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Illinois, Chicago leaders are reacting to the extended 4th of July holiday weekend when 109 people were shot and 19 were killed citywide. African-American Police Superintendent Larry Snelling says their approach to violent crime needs to change. He also said adjustments were made after the 4th of July heading into the weekend, including canceling officers' days off. The U.S. death toll from Hurricane Beryl is up to at least 8. 7 people were confirmed dead Monday in the Houston area after the Category 1 storm brought flooding, heavy rain, and high winds to the area. Some were killed by falling trees, while another was killed in a house fire sparked by the storm. Another drowned trying to drive through high water. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Shop Macy's Backstage today for amazing deals on everything you need for summer. Get low prices every day at Macy's Backstage. Find a store near you at Macy'sBackstage.com. Off price, on trend, arriving daily.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in action tonight after an off day on Monday. They're in Philadelphia for the first game of a 3-game series. The Phillies have the best record in the major leagues at 58-32. The Angels lost at home Monday night to the Texas Rangers. Former Clipper star Paul George will wear number 8 when he suits up for the Philadelphia 76ers. George chose number 8 to honor Kobe Bryant. George is unable to wear his normal number 13 jersey. That number, worn by Hall of Famer Wilt Chamberlain, was retired by the Philadelphia franchise in 1991. Chamberlain plays 7 of his 19 NBA seasons with Philadelphia. The LA Sparks are at home tonight against Minnesota. The Sparks have only one win since June 9th. Chicago Sky forward Angel Reese set a WNBA record with 13 consecutive double-doubles. She broke the record held by former Sparks star Candace Parker. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Are you concerned about the youth in our community? Family connections are crucial for youth and young adults, especially those in crisis. Sanctuary of Hope is dedicated to improving the lives of these young individuals through bonding, healing, and relationships. Join us on July 11th at 9:30 a.m. at Holman United Methodist Church for breakfast and an inspiring conversation on family connections. You'll meet some of the dedicated Sanctuary of Hope team, community members who have been a part of crisis resolution, and young people whose lives have been transformed by support and care. Learn about the Sanctuary of Hope's programs that assist youth and young adults, and discover how you too can be part of the solution. For more details and to register to attend, visit thesoh.org. That's www.thesoh.org. Join a movement that's making a real difference.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys?
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
And we're talking with William D. Hartung. He is our guest this morning, and you can see his work. He's got a number of books available, and you can see his work also from time to time in The Nation magazine. Look, speaking about this kind of
AI surge or AI trend in the military industrial complex, or techno war, I guess, is the way you put it. It's scary. It's scary. I think about Cop City and the data collection and the surveillance state, and then you add on to that this move towards a supposedly less expensive, less people-intensive model that makes our giant military behemoth into almost like a big video game for a bunch of tech bros. Sounds pretty insurmountable and scary, but I'm sure there are things we could and should be doing right now.
Yeah, well, I think, like all movements, the seeds of it aren't always visible until it comes to the surface and starts to make a difference. I mean, a lot of people think Rosa Parks was just a tired lady who wanted a seat, but she was actually, she was part of a movement. She was chosen because they thought she could take the heat, and there was a lot of, things that went up to the Montgomery bus boycott and so forth. And I think there are some seeds of an anti-war, anti-militarism movement. There's things like the Poor People's Campaign, which is modeled on what King was trying to do at the end of his life. And they're looking at militarism, economic inequality, racism, and environmental degradation. They have chapters all over the country. There's some progressive vets like Common Defense and About Face who've seen the face of war and say, we got to stop the madness. So there's groups that have worked on nuclear disarmament that are starting to recruit younger experts and advocates. And there's also resistance in the heart of the beast in Silicon Valley, pushing against doing military projects. There's some sort of refugees from Silicon Valley monitoring all this, raising the alarm about what this would mean for us in the future. There's an excellent book by Roberto Gonzalez, who was at San Jose State, called War Virtually, that covers the full gamut of all of this and how people are pushing back. So I think somehow we have to knit together these various movements against militarization of the police, extreme surveillance, endless war overseas, the stealing of our resources for these military corporations. And that's not easy to do. I think it involves kind of listening to each other's concerns, building kind of sensitively understanding that you can't just go in and say, my issue is more important than your issue, but how do they fit together? How do we reinforce each other? In my field, there's a ton of that. The older guard, when the young people are doing things, they're like, well, they're not doing it our way. And, I hate to mention that our way didn't work. And there's all kinds of new energy. For example, the encampment movement over Gaza. A lot of those people are digging deep. I met a student from University of Indiana who was suspended for using his free speech rights about Palestine. And they were researching the military ties of the university. They wanted me to help them. And they sent me what they had already. There was this humongous list of contracts and relationships to the naval ammunition facility. And, I need them to help me. They were right on it. And they are looking at the deeper roots of this, not just in Gaza, but how did we end up here? Why does our society function this way? So I think a good number of those students are going to stick with it, not just on Gaza, but on this other range of issues. So it's obviously we're up against a lot, but I think there's been many points in our history where people power has overcome money power, and that's sort of what we need.
Yeah. I love your point about the different generations of activism, and I kind of feel like even if our way did work, it took us to this point, and now who's going to take us further down that road? And it's going to be, it might not look how it looked when you did it. I've had these conversations many times on the air. Like the late John Fromer said, it's going to take us all. So I think you're right. What about regulating AI in general? We've heard, dialogue in the media about plagiarism, and a lot of the musical artists are up in arms over the stealing of their essence, their soul, their style, their vibe. Writers, same thing. Actors, too. That was an issue in our SAG and after negotiations end of last year. And then now you bring the military piece into it, along with surveillance. what needs to be done to regulate AI, especially since lawmakers and most of us don't even understand its capabilities or how it works?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of interact with some of these dissident scientists and engineers who are sounding the alarm about this, even some of the investors who realize that this is sending us down a dangerous path. I think there is a project to recruit technically proficient people into government to be able to regulate this stuff. I mean, the problem is it's here already.
Right.
So how do you keep it in a box where it doesn't devastate our society? And I think on the military side, the Pentagon has given lip service to this. We'll keep people in the loop. We won't let them shoot by themselves and so forth. But the main rulemaking was heavily influenced by Eric Schmidt, the former head of Google, who also invests in these military tech firms. So, we need to break free and have like an independent monitoring system for this and somehow get the different concerns together. I was at a meeting of, what I felt to be fairly progressive activists who hadn't really thought about this. I raised the military aspect. It was news to them, and a lot of them were more talking about how they thought it would be positive for like doing research and this and that, the other thing. So somehow we need a common sense of this is a dangerous phenomenon. Of course, it's going to exist in some form, but we need all hands on deck to figure out how to keep it in its box and not let it become sort of ubiquitous in how our society is organized.
Yeah, I mean, it was news to me. I just hadn't really put two and two together when I started reading some of your work. It was an area that I just hadn't put in my brain. Of course, it makes sense. The military is always going to be trying to utilize technology, but this is more than just the old guard utilizing technology. This is a new corporate takeover, kind of, right?
Yeah, and there's a danger that it will make war even more likely because there's fewer people at risk. They claim, great proficiency of these technologies, but if you look back, in Vietnam, they had this thing called the electronic battlefield, which was supposed to find every Viet Cong fighter and take them out. They found ways to work around it, and they actually junked it because it wasn't working at all. Or, Reagan was going to make an impenetrable shield that would protect us from all nuclear weapons. That quickly went by the boards. They have, after the Cold War, well, we've got these precision-guided munitions, and we're going to hit every target. It didn't do them any good in the kind of wars they fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they were being defeated by improvised explosive devices and just adversaries who knew the local terrain. So they're still holding on to this notion that technology will save us, but it's been proven wrong, especially in the military, over and over and over.
But not until after we invest large sums of the people's money in it, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very expensive learning curve, unfortunately. So maybe we can short circuit that this time.
An expensive learning curve. That's putting it mildly. The other thing that I find fascinating that you've kind of touched on, but how these familiar names, right, in the tech industry and in right-wing conservative spaces like the Peter Thiels of the world are popping up or coalescing in the the military technology business.
Yeah, I think a lot of them have, in some parts of the country, almost positive images because they're doing all this great stuff, vehicles and computing power and so forth. And the military side, sort of the dark side, has not gotten the same kind of attention, nor the fact that they're very dedicated, anti-democratic political figures. They're not just taking money, they're also undermining the foundations of democracy.
So I think in the past we've thought of the Silicon Valley tech people, I was going to say guys because it is mostly guys, as being, Democratic donors or potentially Democratic donors or being little liberal or whatever. And now it feels like it's just the opposite. I mean, with using Musk as an example, again, you're talking about a guy who actually called himself a Democrat, who's now, you know, pretty much on the MAGA train. Do you think it's, I guess it's a chicken or egg question. Is this a shift because they're getting into this business, or is it, it's just something we overlooked and it's always been there? You know, because as you point out, they don't want regulation. They want to be able to be little lords over their own techno dominions. Do you see that as a change, or is it something we just overlooked?
I think the beginnings of it were there. I think there are still Democratic donors in Silicon Valley. I think a lot of them are horrified by the social agenda of the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
But I think money is driving it, and this philosophy of extreme libertarianism that, you know, get the government out of our way, and it just, some of it may just be bad luck. I mean, these particular people who are at the forefront of this, I just have kind of horrific ideologies and kind of illusions of grandeur that are just, you don't want them deciding whether you go to war or how you build your military or how you run your government, and yet they seem to feel they have the right to do that.
Talking with William D. Hartung and you. I've got some folks raising questions in the chat. We'll look at that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Help prevent gun violence tragedies. Gun violence restraining orders can help to prevent individuals at risk of harming themselves or others by removing their guns for 21 days up to 5 years. Learn more about how to petition for a GVRO and the role of GVROs in safeguarding communities by visiting lacountygvro.org or by calling 1-833-540-0473. GVROs can save lives.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323 523-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Paid for by government. Did you hear? A secret hoard of 1904 $20 gold Liberty coins have been found. These gorgeous 1904p gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this secret U.S. gold coin discovery a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you can own a piece of the hoard. When you call, you are guaranteed a 1904 gold Liberty struck at the iconic Philadelphia Mint. With limited availability, you must call now. These 1904 dated gold coins are still in uncirculated condition with brilliant luster. That is 120 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-973-3083. Call now and you'll receive a free bonus, a $75 value free with every order. Call 1-800-973-3083 now to secure your 1904p $20 gold Liberty coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-973-3083.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back indeed. It is my honor to be talking with William Hartung. He's an author and he is a senior research fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. This is not a small deal. We're talking about billions of dollars. I think you said that the New York Times estimated something like $125 billion spent in this military tech over the past 4 years by investors. This is a huge trend, huge wave, right?
Yeah, and to some degree the investors are driving it because they're spending more than the Pentagon at the moment on this stuff. But the Deputy Defense Secretary, Kathleen Hicks, gave a speech last year to the basic trade association for the weapons industry, and she was touting all of this. They have this thing called the Replicator Initiative, which is supposed to help them make these kind of nimble, inexpensive, cheap weapons like swarms of drones and so forth. And so she was all in on this, and that this is the way we're going to beat China. And I thought it was particularly ill-considered because she was basically sort of taunting the Chinese government. We have better technology. We're going to beat you, when we don't have the technology yet. We don't know if it's going to work. So it's sort of like they're poking our adversary, almost goading them into an arms race when they don't even know whether they can hold up their end of the deal.
I mean, with weaponry, with our defense system, the military budget, there's always this thing that somehow they convince people that all of this keeps us safer. And I feel like that's part of the shift that we need to make, is for us to understand what actually keeps us safer. When I think about technology being, in technological systems and AI being in control of war, it doesn't feel safe to me. It feels like, we already see slaughters of civilians that are supposedly accidents. I can just imagine what happens if, the software glitches or somebody programs it wrong or systems break down when lives are at stake. And I'm not trying to be, anti-technology, but it seems like the amount of testing and the amount of backup and assurance you would need to safely deploy massive military systems using AI is pretty, considerable.
Yeah, I think it's got to start with what's the goal of the United States in the world. And if you have a defensive approach that says we don't have to go everywhere, fight every war, dominate the globe militarily, but it's really about defending the country, you could spend a lot less and you'd have less of this hubris about needing all these miracle weapons. But also, if it fits into a real defense strategy and it can be controlled carefully, perhaps, but that has to be investigated. We can't just throw money at it and go full speed ahead. I mean, to me, these companies should be, they're suppliers, so the product makes sense or it doesn't. They shouldn't be kind of influencing our policy and the way we organize our society, so that they need to be like pigeonholed as just companies that make a product, and that the society decides how that product may or may not be used. So things are a little bit backwards at the moment.
Yeah, that's true in the social media space too. I mean, really, to me, the fact that a Meta is now a major distributor of news, but they don't have the same kind of responsibility as news agencies doesn't make any sense. It's allowing them to be, influencers of how we do business as a society, rather than, as you say, suppliers of a product or service.
Yeah, and I think, of course, critical education is essential in this, to kind of sort through the disinformation, to question some of these, assumptions about the value of technology and so forth. And of course, we've been starving our educational system, and now there's an attack on learning basic facts about what this country was about and how it was built, be it about slavery or the treatment of Native Americans, any number of things. You can't build a society or improve a society if you don't know where you came from. And there's an effort to prevent people from getting a full picture.
Yeah, and to your other point about this sometimes our minds, our mouths get ahead of our actual technology. You point out in one article that the new U.S. drones that we sent to Ukraine, the war against Russia, were apparently too glitchy, and the cost was too high, so they went ahead and went for swapped them out for the Chinese drones instead. That's all bad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in favor of making war more effective, so I don't think we should be fighting these wars. But it seems to be the case that some of the countries that build things that are not quite as technologically sophisticated, they can build them more quickly, so they don't have the same kind of malfunctions, they're easier to maintain, but they also don't make as much money for the companies. So even if you're kind of like an intelligent militarist, this stuff doesn't entirely make sense.
Yeah. Well, I have millions more questions, but we are almost out of airtime, so I'm going to ask you what you want us to think about and ponder on this day with our final minute here.
Well, I think it would be important to connect with groups like the Poor People's Campaign, or kind of follow some of these critics of the tech industry, just educate ourselves about what we're up against, and maybe raise some questions with our friends and people in our circles who are all in on the wonderful AI future, to at least have them think about the risks. I think we're kind of at early days of changing the conversation, which is the first step to changing the policy.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing to wake us up and at least give us a perspective. I mean, the gamification of everything is now heading towards your friendly military-industrial complex, and that's certainly something to pay attention to. William D. Hartung, thank you so much for talking with me this morning.
Oh, I appreciate the conversation. It was very helpful to me.
Absolutely. We're talking Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Yep, it's today. And attorney Angela Reddick Wright is with us. She'll help us sort it all out next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Illinois, Chicago leaders are reacting to the extended 4th of July holiday weekend when 109 people were shot and 19 were killed citywide. African-American Police Superintendent Larry Snelling says their approach to violent crime needs to change. He also said adjustments were made after the 4th of U.S. death toll from Hurricane Beryl is up to at least 8. 7 people were confirmed dead Monday in the Houston area.